I would love to talk about Helping Parents Heal. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit, and we're dedicated to helping parents be able to move forward after the passing of a child. And the most important thing about our organization that's different from other organizations is that we believe that you can heal from the passing of a child. And we don't believe that we're doing it by forgetting our children and leaving them behind. They're with us every step of the way. And so I feel very grateful to have met some incredible people along the way. But I want to just give a shout out to Suzanne Wilson, who was the person who told me very shortly after Morgan, my second child who passed, that I was going to be starting this organization and that it would be a worldwide organization very quickly. So I co-founded it later with Mark Ireland, and it's dedicated to our kids, and I feel that our kids are the reason that we get together. They help us find each other, and they have been helping all of us every step of the way. Our logo is sharing the journey from bereaved to shining light parent, and we don't like the word bereaved because I think it's classified as the saddest word in the dictionary or something like that. And so we wanted to find a different word to describe us, because we truly believe that we are not bereaved. That's not a good term to explain who we are. And Shining Light Parent was developed by Suzanne Giesman, who's also going to be at the conference. And she was talking to me and another friend, Irene Vuvalidis, who's the vice president of Helping Parents Heal. And she meditated and came up with Shining Light Parent, and we all think that it's wonderful. Between 73 and 75 chapters, but we're in the United States, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, New Zealand, and then we have members all over the world. We have 12,000 members on our Facebook group, and we have an online group that offers Zoom meetings with different wonderful speakers from the afterlife community that speak to the parents and answer questions as well. And so we've had some really wonderful speakers. Obviously, Suzanne Wilson has been one of those speakers. We've had so many different people from all different areas of the afterlife community that help our parents. I would love to, and I don't talk about Chelsea a lot, but she is a huge part of my life. And with Chelsea, we were living in France at the time. Morgan was staying with my mother-in-law, and he was only 2 years old, and she lived in another city. So I rarely was able to see him, and I had been in the hospital for 2 months, and she was born prematurely. She was born a little over 6.5 months, but she survived for 2 days. It was incredibly hard to have her pass, and so this was our second child. But Morgan pulled me through. The fact that I was able to go home to Morgan was really what healed me. And at the same time, it started this journey. And I found out later, I actually just found out this year, that Chelsea was not supposed to stay here. She was supposed to transition because of the fact that she was going to help Morgan find me immediately when he transitioned at the base camp of Mount Everest. So basically, she took his hand and guided him to me to be able to hug me when he did. Thank you. I feel really, really happy about the fact that I was able to survive Chelsea's passing and that I was able to move forward. But I did, after Chelsea passed, have 2 beautiful daughters who are here. One is 26 and one is 24. So that was also something that was incredibly healing to me. But she's always a part of our lives. She's never, ever not been a part of our lives in that whole time. Yes, I would love to. And Suzanne Wilson, again, is a huge part of that. Right after Morgan passed, it was probably a couple days after he passed, there was a yoga studio that I had been practicing in, and the owner of the yoga studio wanted to be able to interview someone to see about renting a space in the yoga studio. And that was very unusual because she was not a believer in any of this. It wasn't something that was even interesting to her. And Suzanne Wilson went to talk to her. And when she got there, the owner, Angie, said, well, how can I tell if you're for real or not? And Suzanne said, well, you have a picture that I can read. And it turned out that I had just sent a Christmas card for that Christmas with all of the kids on the front of it. But it didn't have any text on it. So she showed the picture of the kids to Suzanne, and Suzanne immediately saw Morgan on a mountain on his back. And he also was shouting from the mountaintop through a megaphone that he was okay. He was a cheerleader at the University of Arizona, so that was very significant. The megaphone that he used was part of his service. And then she talked about a band of brothers. There were two other boys who were there who were his roommates, who actually, she was talking about a band of three brothers. The two of them stayed in Lhasa and waited for my husband, which took a while because he had to get a visa to get over to Tibet to get Morgan home. And they waited there, even though they also were suffering from altitude sickness. She also talked about a rock and actually drew it so that Angie had a drawing of the rock that we were going to receive from the place that Morgan passed. And we did receive that rock in December of that year when Colin came home, one of his roommates came home. It was exactly the same rock. We have it in his room today. And there were so many other validations, but that led to me needing to reach out to Suzanne Wilson and try to get a reading with her. Although I had never even thought about getting a reading from a psychic medium before this time. It was not something that had ever been on my radar. I had never had a reason to, except perhaps because of Chelsea, but at the time that wasn't something that I even understood. So when I did contact Suzanne Wilson, she was unfortunately very busy and wasn't able to meet until 2 months later. And she immediately brought through Chelsea. And it was very interesting to me because she brought Chelsea through at the age that she would have been at the time that she gave me the reading, and told me that she was very beautiful, described what she looked like, and said that she was the first person to meet Morgan. But more importantly, she had been at a convention the week before, I think the weekend before, and she met Mark Ireland with Jamie Clark, who was also there, and some other people that are a big part of our community now. And she told Mark that Morgan had passed on a mountain, and Mark signed his book, Soul Shift, Finding Where the Dead Go, to give her to bring to me. And so I immediately read that book, got in touch with Mark, and told him that I wanted to meet for coffee. And that was the reason that we initially started talking to each other about the afterlife. I had already started the group, and he was the first speaker to come and speak to the group here in Carefree. And there were 25 people at that time. And then after that, he kept coming to the meetings and helping out. And 2 years later, we got together and formed Helping Parents Heal. Yes, definitely. First of all, I think that it's important for people to know that you can find happiness again. And I think that that's the biggest thing that people worry about, that you're never, ever going to find joy in your life again. Secondly, your child is going to be with you every step of the way. Third, and I think this is the most important thing, They share in everything that we're doing. I keep getting chills as I'm saying this. Every single thing that we do every day, they're with us every step of the way. And I know that George Anderson has written that when we cross and when we find them again, it'll be as though not a second has passed. And that's something that's really, really important for parents to understand as well. There is a thin sheet of almost like wax paper that separates us from them, but they are still right here. And for us to be able to move forward and live our lives in a positive way, and to know that they're with us every step of the way, that's something that makes them so proud. They're like kids they're like actually the dads who go into the area where the babies have just been born, and they've been put into their beds, and there's a glass separating them from the babies, and they're pointing at the babies and they're saying, that's my kid, that's my son, that's my daughter. They're doing the same things with us. They're saying, that's my mom, that's my dad. And they're so proud of everything that we're doing. And so I think that the most important thing that we have to understand is that we have a fork in the road when this happens. You can either, and this is something that I've said before, I told myself I could either become that woman from Cave Creek, curled up with a bottle of vodka on my bed because my son has passed and I miss him so much, or I could honor my two daughters and also honor my son by moving forward and being able to continue and create a life that honors him and that never forgets him. And it's not necessary to create a nonprofit to do that. Just by living every day and enjoying what we're doing. They taste the food that we're tasting. They go the places that we're going. They're enjoying the birthday parties that we're celebrating, as well as the weddings, as well as the graduations, as well as every significant event in our lives. Well, I'm very, very excited about the presentation. I always feel so grateful when we talk about what happened. And going back to that time, when Suzanne brought all of these messages through, she connected with Morgan in a way that was very profound. And she actually works with Morgan to help bring other kids through. He's a cheerleader, so he's really good at that kind of thing. And she also gave a reading to a friend of mine. She's now a friend of mine. I had never met her before, in Charleston, South Carolina, soon after she gave my reading to Morgan. And in that reading, the mom found out that Suzanne knew about her son Brian, was in contact with him. It was Morgan who had brought him through. It was very emotional and an incredible reading. And soon after that, Suzanne called me and told me that Morgan had gotten in touch with her and that he and Brian were hiking in heaven. And I thought that was a beautiful way of thinking of where they are and what they're doing. And I go hiking all the time. As a matter of fact, I had vertigo before Morgan passed. And then after he passed, it completely disappeared. So soon after that, my daughter had been going to school at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and she had a roommate whose mother had just passed the year before, almost the same day that Morgan had. And she had never had a reading with a psychic medium. And so I thought that it was really important on her angel date, which was a year later, that she be able to go and see a psychic medium. So I asked Mark Ireland if he had any good suggestions. And so Tina kindly had the roommate come, as well as my daughter, as well as another roommate, all came. She was so impressed that these two girls would bring another girl to have a reading. And it turns out that Morgan came through during the reading, and he told Tina that she had to gift a reading to my husband and I. I was really blown away. So we said, sure. And we went down 2 weeks later. And it turns out that in the reading, she started talking about a Mustang, and that Morgan was with a boy with a Mustang. And I thought, a Mustang? And since I live in Cave Creek, Arizona, I thought it was a horse. And I thought, oh gosh, I wonder who that is. And then I realized that Brian had passed in a collector edition Mustang. So it was kind of an amazing thing, because when I realized it was Brian, I said, oh yes. And then she said, Morgan says they're hiking in heaven. So I thought that that was one of the most incredible validations, because of the fact that it was totally out of the blue that Tina would say that. She didn't know Suzanne Wilson at all at that time. They're close friends now. Actually, it wasn't something that she was aware of at the time. Well, it's kind of like a love fest, and the Soul Summit Scottsdale is just amazing, and I've been there for the past couple of years. It's wonderful to be able to talk to people on the phone and to see them online, but being able to be there and to be hugged and to give hugs to other people that you've talked to for such a long time on the internet is an amazing thing. And being able to meet these speakers as well in person, and to be able to interact with them during the downtime that is available during the conference as well is amazing. I teach yoga. I think that being able to practice yoga is something that is extremely helpful in being able to maintain a high vibration. And I think that that's probably the reason that I was able to connect to Morgan immediately when he passed at Mount Everest. Secondly, I think that it's important to be able to eat things that are as environmentally friendly as possible. I'm a vegetarian. Actually, I'm a pescatarian. I don't think that people have to be a vegetarian to be able to have a high vibration, but I think that it does help to eat things that are healthful. So those are all things that are important. But I also think that having a positive outlook is incredibly important. So just being able to look at your life as a glass that is half full instead of half empty. We have so much in our lives that we can be grateful for, and being able to acknowledge that every day. When I wake up, I tell myself, I'm so grateful for this day, and I truly am. And there are so many other things, but there are lots of ways to be able to live at a higher vibration and to be more connected with the people that we love in spirit, because of the fact that we're living that high vibration.